Tonight on The Wrap, the sun, the moon and millions of people watching around the world. Europe is plunged into darkness by a once-in-a-generation event. Here in the UK, its first near-total solar eclipse in 25 years.
Can't quite believe what you see sometimes. It's the freak of nature, just unbelievable, absolutely amazing.
It was so good. Like, it was amazing to see. It's probably a once-in-a-lifetime kind of opportunity.
Also on the programme, serial sex offender and double murderer Simon Levy is told that he will rot in hell as he learns he will die in jail. But questions for the police and the justice system about why they failed to stop him earlier. And one of the best-known faces in American politics, Caroline Leavitt, quits the White House, saying she can't do her job and be the best mum to her two young children. Well, we discuss today's biggest stories with the FT's Whitehall editor, Lucy Fisher, and the political commentator, Adam Bolton. Plus, a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers coming up at about past. Well, hello and a very good evening to you. Adam, Lucy, welcome to both of you. So people came from far and wide to witness a natural phenomenon that has thrilled and sometimes perturbed or even terrified humans for thousands of years, a solar eclipse. Lucy and Adam, I have FOMO and a sense of failure about being unable to watch it because I couldn't get the glasses. Did you manage to enjoy?
I did. I luckily relied on the foresight of a colleague of mine. I was on the roof of the Financial Times headquarters in the heart of the City of London. And it was amazing to first see it myself through the glasses and then to watch as colleagues came out, people in sort of two minds as to what all the fuss was about. And then one by one, see people hold up the glasses and just say, wow.
Adam?
Yeah, I was on a roof terrace too at the Times building, and it was very spectacular, except you had to have the glasses because the sun in the UK never got sufficiently obliterated that you could look at it. And in fact, even at the peak of the 90% coverage, it just looked like the sun as normal. However, if you were lucky enough to have the glasses, as I did, I actually got two pairs, I think, left over from the last time we had an eclipse.
1999, folks.
1999. I just found them in a box of old glasses. I can't
believe you found them.
Of old glasses. You could see, you know, what is amazing, what you see is a crescent sun. You know, we're used to seeing a crescent moon because the Earth gets in the way of the sun, but this was a crescent sun, which is pretty unique and pretty amazing.
Yeah, I got to see some birds flying slightly frantically. It's not quite the same. But anyway, many of you saw, if not on telly, and certainly here in the UK, as Adam said, the eclipse was near total. Dan Whitehead watched from Cornwall.
While the sun still shone, thousands filled Fistral Beach. For families and friends, this was a magical moment. The anticipation, and then a golden shadow as 96% of the sun disappeared.
I mean, it's incredible. I've literally got goosebumps. What a feeling. It's dark, it's eerie, it's definitely got a bit cooler. A huge eruption of applause, a real feeling that everyone has experienced this magical moment together.
I can't quite believe what you see sometimes. It's the freak of nature, just unbelievable, absolutely amazing.
It was emotional.
Very emotional, because we'll never see it again. Just absolutely fantastic.
It was really cool. I loved it.
What did you notice about it?
I noticed that it got all darker, and then now there's still some shadows of it, and all the birds went a bit, like, fast. I think they got a bit scared.
I think what's special is being here with all of these, and it's something that the kids are going to remember and we're going to remember for a lifetime. I think that's what makes it really special.
For the last 5 years, we've got a group from Darts, and we meet here every Thursday to watch the sunset. We call it Prosecco Thursday. That was our drink of choice. We have changed over the years. So this week I put the WhatsApp group and I said we're changing it to Wednesday, partial eclipse of the sun.
Was it worth it?
It bloody well was.
What a moment that was. What did you think?
Really emotional when everyone started clapping. And then everyone watching through their glasses, and just to see the amount of people here was amazing.
It just felt special, it just felt like a moment. I know I'm not going to have it again now to 2009, there's a good chance I'm probably not going to be here. So to experience it with the family, with the kids and everything like that, just, you know, just taking it all in.
As the sun re-emerged, the eclipse party continued. Solar cocktails and live music went into the night. It's been 27 years since the UK experienced a partial solar eclipse like this. It'll be 2081, 55 years away, before we get it again. This was a very rare celestial moment in time. Dan Whitehead, Sky News in Newquay, Cornwall.
Amazing stuff. Not quite total. We'll come to that now because millions of people across Europe witnessed today's solar eclipse. Iceland was the first to witness the rare spectacle, a total solar eclipse. Just look at these stunning images. While people watching in Norway witnessed a partial solar eclipse, these images are from the Norwegian city of Stavanger. This was the moment the eclipse began in Mallorca, with crowds who had gathered on beaches there being treated to a total eclipse. There we go. Again, Mallorca, the most significant eclipse in decades, coming to an end. Well, Alistair Bunkle was on the beach there, filming those pictures at the moment of totality.
Just look at this, or look at what you can see, and have a listen to this. We have totality now, and an event that is old as the planet itself. You can also see the modernity of the lights of camera phones as everybody can now remove their glasses and look at that spectacular image and capture it for themselves on their phones. And we are in total darkness, almost. There's just the faintest of glow. God, I mean, I don't have the words for this. I've seen a lot in this job, but this I will remember. This is quite extraordinary. The moment that the moon passed right in front of the sun, there was a huge cheer here on the beach, and people are now, some people are up dancing. Everybody's got to their feet. And you can just see the rays. You can see the rays of the sun now just eking out from around the moon. And we've got this for about 90 seconds, probably for about another 45 seconds or so. Oh, and it's just starting to appear now. That bright glow.
Yes, I found myself getting quieter and quieter as we looked at those pictures, because that's kind of what people feel, is that sense of silence, the emotion that comes with it, this thing that, you know, humans have watched for thousands of years and that scientists still learn so much from.
Well, absolutely. It has this sort of magical feel because of the eeriness of the quality of the light. I definitely felt, I'm not sure if it was psychosomatic, a drop in the temperature as we got as close to almost, I think in some parts of the UK, 96% eclipse of the solar disk. And for those who've missed it, like you, Anna, there's still the Perseid meteor shower to come, an astronomical encore. So it feels like a very special week for watching the sky.
Yes, and it's extremely rare to have the prospect of a total solar eclipse, you know, in line with the Perseid meteor showers. Somebody was saying it was only 5,000 years ago when that happened. I mean, all sorts of records being broken. But for scientists, it's all about the corona, isn't it? This faint outer atmosphere of the sun, which is usually hidden by bright light. And that is what causes or impacts us with solar winds and the storms that can disrupt satellites and power grids. NASA sending its plane to follow the line of totality. Past eclipses apparently helped Albert Einstein's theory of relativity by showing how gravity bends light from distant stars. There's all sorts of reasons to study, you know, this, let alone the moment for people watching it and being moved by it, Adam.
Yeah, and of course the main thing about eclipses these days is, thanks to science, they're predictable, because the great thing about science historically, or the absence of science historically, was people were absolutely terrified when eclipses happened, because they thought they'd done something wrong, or it was a portent of something terrible. Whereas now we know it's about physical bodies moving around. I have to say, where I was, there wasn't really an eerie night. What it reminded me of is those kind of sunset bars you see around the Mediterranean. As the sun goes down, you get that.
Did you have a beer in hand?
Slightly, I have to say I didn't, but there were people with tins and gin and tonics.
I thought the light was different to a normal sunset environment. Certainly that South London phenomenon known as the green parakeet that flies around. They were going nuts. They were just doing low-flying, frantic flying. And actually, one of the children that I think it was Dan Whitehead spoke to on the beach in Cornwall said the birds were just flying so fast, and that's what I noticed.
Don't tell Stella Creasy, or she'll call the RSP.
Exactly. But next year, head south again. Where can you see it next year? I mean,
Morocco, Egypt, I think Jeddah, another destination.
Right.
Peru.
Yeah, I mean, it's like tornadoes. Okay. There are people who chase them around the world.
Yeah. Mark Auster spoke to someone who'd seen 8 and was giving a talk in Greenland. So 8's good going, isn't it? Did you see the 1999 one, Adam, or was it cloudy?
I can't remember. I got the glasses.
I think that means you didn't see it.
I think it was. I have to say, I think it was very cloudy in London. I didn't go.
Okay.
I remember we had a reporter down in Devon, and I don't think it was very good there either, because it was cloudy. Although I see that Tony Blackburn, the disc jockey who goes a lot to South Devon, he thinks this one was rubbish compared to 96.
Okay, well, there's always one, isn't there? Anyway, some fantastic front pages coming up for you at past as well, so we'll take a look at that. Now, the serial sex offender and double murderer Simon Levy was told by the families of his victims that he would rot in hell, as he learned today that he will never be released from prison. But there are serious questions for the police and the justice system about why they failed to stop him earlier. Barnaby Papadopoulos has this report.
You ruthlessly exploited and took advantage of each of those 3 women for your own personal sexual satisfaction.
It is this country's most serious prison sentence, passed in response to the most serious of offences.
The sentence is one of life imprisonment with a whole life order.
Simon Levy is a prolific sex offender, described in court today as someone obsessed with rape and with crime. He was convicted last week of murdering 2 women, 53-year-old Carmenza Valencia Trujillo and Cheryl Wilkins, who was 39. He was also found guilty of violently raping a 3rd victim, someone trafficked to the UK. The court heard from the relatives of Levy's victims. Carmenza Valencia Trujillo's daughter said her mother had come to the UK seeking a better life for her children. "We have been living a nightmare we cannot wake up from," she said. "We don't know why she was taken from us." The mother of Cheryl Wilkins told the court that Levy had destroyed the lives of her family. "Our Cheryl has ended your chances of hurting anyone else," she said. "She lost her life to do this, but we truly believe Cheryl has saved countless women from being subjected to your disgusting and horrendous acts." But as Levy was taken away to begin his sentence, the most senior police officer in the country accused the criminal justice system of failing his victims.
I'm not sort of trying to absolve ourselves of our responsibility, but dangerous people need remanding in custody, and we're seeing far too many cases, day in and day out, knife carriers, sex offenders who are being bailed when a few years ago they've been remanded in custody, and we can't carry all of that load in communities.
The CPS earlier said, "Our actions fell short of the standards that victims' families and the public are entitled to expect." Levy was well known to the authorities, having been convicted of sexual offences in 2021. In 2024, he was arrested for sexually assaulting women on trains, but police made errors that delayed charging him. The following January, he raped a woman in a Tottenham car park, but police initially did not pursue the case. 4 months later, he was arrested for the murder of Carmenza Valencia Trujillo after his DNA was found on her body. At the time, police said they had insufficient evidence to charge him.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. I haven't done nothing. Just saying.
He was finally remanded into custody after his arrest for Cheryl Wilkins' murder in September 2025. Today's sentence represents justice for Levy's victims, their relatives, and survivors of his prolific offending. But this trial has also revealed that, had so many opportunities not been missed,
that offending could have been stopped far sooner. Barnaby Papadopoulos, Sky News, at the Old Bailey.
Lucy, multiple times this man could have been stopped. Failures right across the board, investigations about those failures underway.
Yes, a horrific spate of failings and questions for prosecutors, the court system, and of course, as we've been talking about for the past fortnight now, the controversial prisoner early release scheme and the prospect of jails reaching capacity yet again because of long-term failures to plan for enough places. Raise the prospect of further, serious criminals, as Sir Mark Rowley, the Metropolitan Police Chief, was warning just there. It's heartbreaking to read the details of the missed chances here. Last year, Simon Levy killed 2 women. 2 weeks before the murder of one of them, he was due in a Crown Court in inner London, didn't turn up, claiming mental health issues, and no warrant for his arrest was sought. Therefore, he was free to go on and murder one of the 2 women last year. And that's just one of a repeated litany of times he was freed to murder and rape when he had been picked up by the authorities. And
we heard yesterday the Prison Officers Association saying what we need to do in terms of the early release of prisoners is triage people who are in for remand. And yet there we have the head of the Met saying day in, day out, we see sex offenders who are not bailed to prison, they're out. I mean, that is...
I mean, that is happening, but I'm not sure that the police are in a perfect position to protest about it, because I don't know whether in these cases, whether the police oppose bail. The police have a right to oppose bail, and...
The Crown Prosecution Service admitted that it had not opposed bail at the first hearing. Yeah. The prosecutor had not given the court all the relevant information for consideration at the second hearing.
And the police didn't oppose it either. And our colleague, who's often on the rap, Sonia Soda, wrote a very persuasive piece in the Times today about this case, drawing parallels between this case and the murder of Sarah Everard, and basically the blind eye and lack of priority that the police gave to this crime. I think the first time he was reported to the police, it took the police a year to investigate, to actually take up an accusation of rape. And Sonia argues that she believes the police are institutional misogynistic. And of course, she reminds everyone that the killer of Sarah Everard was jokingly referred to as the rapist by his colleagues. And I'm not sure, although Sir Mark Rowley has done quite a lot to clean up the Met, I'm not sure, certainly Sonia argues in her article, that the police have not reformed, that they still don't take crimes against women seriously, and they're still slow to investigate them or to follow through once someone has sort of gone on the radar as an offender.
And this man was on the radar a lot, has to be said. He was arrested by British Transport Police in November 2024 for sexual assaults on the tube. Before that, he'd been jailed in 2021 for groping 2 women in the summer of 2018, one at Notting Hill Carnival, the other at a party in Camden. So that's already multiple years on the radar. We know that the Independent Office for Police Conduct said it had served a gross misconduct notice on a Met Police constable and a misconduct notice on a detective sergeant. So, they're also appealing for more survivors of sex attacks by Levy to come forward to police, saying that they've exhausted their own investigations, trying to work out whether any similar unsolved incidents, including deaths, might actually be linked to him. So, I mean, this will continue, won't it?
Well, it will, and he was clearly a highly sophisticated, manipulative criminal and abuser, killer and rapist. And I also think it's a relevant point, building on Adam's important insights there into the attitudes of the police towards crimes against women is in the case of Simon Levy. Several of his victims were vulnerable women who had been known to perform sex acts for money, for drugs, and therefore one wonders as well if these marginalised victims were also written off or not taken as seriously as maybe middle-class female victims might have been.
Yeah, we've seen that accusation before, haven't we? Certainly. Now, big news from America. Donald Trump has announced that one of Washington's most recognisable and combative figures is leaving her role. The White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, is leaving at the end of the month to spend more time with her family. She had her second child at the beginning of May. Well, in a moment, we will speak to James Matthews in Washington, but first, let us watch Caroline Leavitt in action.
You're pretending like you're a journalist, but you're a left-wing activist. And the question that you just raised in your answer proves your bias. You should be reporting on the facts. You should be reporting on the cases. Do you have the numbers of how many American citizens were killed at the hands of illegal aliens who ICE is trying to remove from this country? I bet you don't. I bet you didn't even read up on those stories.
They don't get charged on foreign companies. They get charged on the importers.
And ultimately, when we have fair and balanced trade, which the American people have not seen in decades, as I said at the beginning, revenues will stay here, wages will go up, and our country will be made wealthy again. And I think it's insulting that you are trying to test my knowledge of economics and the decisions that this president has made. I'm now regret giving a question to the Associated Press. Shame on you and shame on the mainstream media for trying to cover for these individuals who have. This is a vicious gang, Andrew. This is a vicious gang that has taken the lives of American women.
Well, let's bring in James then. I'm blown away by how young she is, James, and the fact she worked in Trump's first term as well, but can't juggle family and this unbelievable job. How big a blow is this to Mr. Trump?
I think it is a blow for him. And you used the word combative. I think we saw that laid bare there. Certainly somebody who was on the front foot, robust in her dealings on his behalf. She has been, as you say, she worked in the first term, been his press secretary throughout the second term so far. 28 years old, the youngest ever to hold that position. She recently gave birth to her second child, Anna. That's a reason for leaving, although she will remain an outside advisor, we are told. On X, she posted this. The truth is, since returning to the White House after the birth of my daughter, I have felt in my heart I cannot be the best mum to my two young children, or that my two young children deserve, while devoting the constant time, energy and attention required of the White House press secretary. That's why I have ultimately made the bittersweet decision to depart the White House and embark on a new chapter in my life. She goes on to say that my fight is entering a new phase, but it is far from over. As you said, Anna, she's one of the best-known faces in the United States, a robust mouthpiece for the Trump administration. You got a sense there of the fact that between press secretary and press, it's been difficult, antagonistic in a way that it never has been before. It's fair to say, I think the truth has been stretched at times when she's been at the podium. Straight answers certainly have been scarce. But I do think, in terms of Trump, he had a press secretary very much up for the fight on behalf of the boss, and that is why she is a big loss. He's been on Truth Social calling her one of the most trusted aides that he has. It's difficult to point to an obvious successor. We saw that when she was on maternity leave. There was no obvious candidate. We had this ever-changing cast. I suppose one positive for the Trump administration in all of this might be that right now he's the subject of negative headlines on Iran, on prices, on poll ratings, on this aircraft switch in Turkey. When the messaging gets awkward sometimes, it can help to change the messenger.
Very interesting. James, much appreciated. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, Caroline, Donald Trump wrote, will now be one of my top outside advisors and an influential voice within the Republican Party as we work to defy history and conclusively win the midterm elections. But, I mean, she's had a big, big role to play, hasn't she, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, she has been a big figure and someone who has, in spite of her, as we saw, undying loyalty to Donald Trump, has forged a kind of personality in her own right as a very assertive assertive figure. I mean, it has to be said politically, she's going before the midterms and there are 2 years to go on Donald Trump's presidency. So to a certain extent, she's leaving before the whole thing runs out of steam, which it's going to do. I mean, her personal life is fascinating. She's 29 later this month.
Oh, is she? Oh, later this month. I thought I got it wrong, but you're right,
her husband is 32 years older. He's a New Hampshire property developer. And since she's been working as the press officer the chief press officer for Donald Trump, she's had 2 children. And each time her amount of maternity leave she's taken has frankly been measured in days before she's actually come back on the job. She's also, you know, a person of faith, a Roman Catholic, and you know, as she says in her statement, she feels that she wants to pay attention to her young children who, you know, are toddlers or younger before it goes. And I think it does leave Donald Trump with a bit of a problem. I can't see someone filling that post with the same skill and devoted dedication, whoever he chooses. And of course, he's had a succession of, remember Sean Spicer, Spicy as he was known, who found it very difficult to support the impossible to support on, you know, the size of the crowd at the first inauguration. There was a girl, I think, called Holly Hart, who came out of the Trump property business, who was there for a time, and I can't see now someone as powerful and as aggressive stepping into the job, but we shall see.
Absolutely, and comes at a critical time. This woman who doesn't really believe in maternity leave, but who can pay for staff, has to be said, probably. You know, there's a lot going on. We've still got Iran. The Financial Times is talking about, you know, Ukraine as well. You've got the midterms. You know, it'll continue to be a pivotal role, no doubt about it.
Well, absolutely. Problems are only building politically for Donald Trump. And I think he will struggle to find someone perhaps he can trust as much as Caroline Leavitt, and her pedigree of having essentially left her degree or graduated from her degree in political comms, having interned at Fox News, and then pretty much immediately having worked on the presidential campaign, first as a speechwriter, then as a campaign spokesperson, and then becoming the press secretary at that tender age of 27. And I think we saw from some of those clips there just how much he seemed to enjoy going into combat with the journalists. And I think that suits Donald Trump's sentiment towards the press, wanting to take a more aggressive approach, and for him to be able to find a replacement who is as confident, as pugilistic, and as trusted by him, I think will be a challenge.
My guess we'll see her again as a news anchor on one of those.
Yeah, or bidding for politics herself, like Sarah Huckabee. Sarah Huckabee Sanders,
who's now governor of Arkansas, having been spokesperson.
She's only 28. She's got a long way ahead, hasn't she? Let's talk about Aston Villa, shall we? Just missed out on winning a second European trophy in 4 months after losing to the Champions League winners Paris Saint-Germain in the UEFA Super Cup. 2-1, the score then in Salzburg. PSG went in front after 20 minutes with a great goal. Villa had plenty of chances to equalise. They did just so before half-time with a goal from 17-year-old striker Brian Maggio. It was his debut for Villa, has to be said. Youngest ever player to start in a Super Cup, becomes the youngest ever scorer as well. Champions League, the winners went in front again just after the half-hour goal following a VAR check. So Aston Villa missing out there. Well, coming up next, we will be taking a first look at what is making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. Back in a moment.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Well, it is time now to see what is making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, and a few corkers like this one. The Sun gives a starring role to the moon in a special edition covering today's eclipse. The Eye describes the event as a once-in-a-generation. And the Metro attempts a pun. Here's what all the fuss was about. The Telegraph also featuring the eclipse with another fantastic photograph, but its main story concerns Andy Burnham's plans to rehouse asylum seekers and the possible implications for taxpayers. The Guardian says nurses are among the people suffering the most amid the ongoing heat crisis as the Prime Minister looks to grasp the problem. The Daily Mail speaks to campaigners blaming Labour's environmental policies for recent wildfires. The Times has seen government analysis which appears to admit that its reforms to 0 hours contracts will have a negative impact on businesses. The Mirror looks ahead to tomorrow's Clacton by-election. So too does the Daily Star. And the Express carries a study suggesting using stairs instead of lifts reduces the risk of dying early. The Financial Times leads with the suspension of Ukrainian drone strikes on oil tankers in a key Russian port following an intervention from the US Vice President, J.D. Vance. All about destabilising the oil markets. What do you think of that Sun front page, Adam?
Well, it's very clever, isn't it? I mean, there was a time when the same people owned the sun and the sky. And they don't, of course, own the moon. But we haven't seen a pithy, really witty Sun front page for a while now, going back to what they were before. Haven't seen what the Star's done yet.
No, the Star was conflating the by-election, wasn't it? Yeah, we had it earlier. There we go. Eclipse. The rest are rubbish. You know, we're going to have to start showing the. Well, of course, we'll get the slate up during this anyway of all the candidates.
Count Binface is meant to be from outer space.
Yeah.
I suppose that's a connection. But I mean, the Sun, you know, in 4 words has done it basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the Eye, with its attempt to once in a generation, absolutely reminds me of my epic fail in not getting the glasses and not being able to look at the darn thing. But anyway, there we are. I'm sure there's many like me, but an absolutely beautiful photograph of the Sun, and it's this, you know, this cosmic brilliance of what happened today, isn't it?
It is. Although you know, I do like the fact that the Sun has gone for the UK perspective of the 96% of the solar disk being covered rather than the full thing, although, as you say, it is a stunning picture.
Yeah. Daily Telegraph as well. It's adding to my FOMO, calling it the greatest show on Earth. The solar eclipse that created a truly collective moment with children looking at it. I mean, you just remember it for, you know, forever, don't you, when you've seen something like this?
I think you absolutely do, and I'm glad my children have had a chance to see it today, because, of course, we won't have a total eclipse until 2090. The next time there's a partial eclipse that gets to this extremity, it won't be till 2050. So these are few and far between, these astronomical phenomena.
Yeah.
That Telegraph family look a bit like the ones that were being talked to in the report, don't they?
Exactly. Down in Newquay.
No, Newquay. And they're taking a picture with their mobile phones, which I can only get to work by putting the glasses in front of the lenses.
Give me the glasses quickly.
Yeah.
No, and the other pair.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that. They're absolutely rubbish, everybody. They really are. There's no way anybody could see through those. Let's be honest about it.
Anyway, Adam, didn't you see advice
well, at least
that
you had
to check they weren't sort of expired?
Yeah. If I'd known you had 2, I'd have borrowed one of them.
No,
there we are.
I gave them to a former colleague of ours. Chris Roberts now works for The Sun. He watched them through this. There you are.
Don't forget, we saw the Clacton front pages there. You can see a list of candidates running in the Clacton by-election playing out on your screen now. All 34 of them. It runs to, is it 3 pages for voters?
3 feet, the ballot paper.
That's it, yeah.
It's costing 4 times the usual printing cost of a ballot paper. The local council have been complaining.
And they haven't got desks big enough, have they, to rest it on?
It's all going to be very interesting.
So people are being allowed to take their ballot paper to a table to lay it out, to see all the names before they disappear into the booth to put a cross on, so they can fold their paper when they put their cross.
Full coverage of that tomorrow. It's going to be very interesting, of course. Now, the other story on the front of the Daily Telegraph, which we focused on the solar eclipse, is about Andy Burnham and this idea that middle-class areas aren't doing their fair share in taking migrants. It comes after an Oxfordshire village, you know, wanted to declare independence in order to, you know, not have a military base be filled with migrants who would outnumber those in the village. But what is the point being made here? And what's the benefit politically for Andy Burnham to this?
Well, Andy Burnham is making the point that he, as a point of principle, wants to ensure that it's not just communities at the lowest end of the socio-economic spectrum that are being forced to accommodate migrants and asylum seekers, but that he is willing to pay more for middle-class areas to also be forced to share their part in the solution of accommodating people. Now, the issue is that at the moment, the private sector contractors that supply the homes are forced to meet strict rent caps that are imposed by the Home Office. So it's clear that the rent caps are either going to have to rise and that the government is going to have to pay more. You know, already £2.7 billion was spent on private asylum accommodation in 2024-25. Since then, Labour has moved thousands of migrants into shared accommodation and military barracks. But this is a real flashpoint in many communities about, you know, people moving in, especially often many men who are younger, and can change the fabric of local society.
I mean, this is a consequence of the government, the previous government, wanting to move people out of hotels because the hotels weren't always located in, you know, the poorest areas by definition if they're hotels. But the decision has been taken that because of public outrage at the idea of people being, in quotes,
nice hotels,
to basically move them out and put them into so-called HMOs, home of multiple occupation. And the people dealing with that had a cap on the amount of rent that is paid, as Lucy was saying, which meant, therefore, that they went to the cheaper areas to locate people. And now Andy Burnham is saying, well, we'll pay a bit more if we can share around these people. But, I mean, to me, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I mean, they talked to the MP, Conservative, in the Telegraph, the MP from Malvern Hills. They've also talked to people on the Isle of Wight. Now, you know, what's the public going to think of putting people into expensive accommodation in the Isle of Wight? They're not necessarily what they want. And, you know, if memory serves, Isle of Wight is host already to a Category A prison, so it's not as if these areas aren't doing their bit.
Right-wing commentators are saying this is not a failure of middle-class people rejecting migrants near them. It is a failure of government to sort out the numbers of people coming over, you know, illegally, and the failure to stop the boats, effectively. So, you know, the field day has started on this subject.
Well, that's right. In a sense, I think Andy Burnham has enjoyed a little bit of breathing room on the issue of migration and particularly illegal channel crossings in the lead up to him taking office last month, because we've seen a huge drop in the number of crossings in the first 7 months of this year, down about 45%. That's not to say that the numbers are not still high, but we've had some remarkable records broken, including this week, of a record number of migrants, I think 230 odd, coming over on a single dinghy that has really refocused minds on this issue. And Burnham is now having to grapple with it. And I was struck that this week, you know, he made this pledge that he will eradicate small boat crossings, reminiscent of that pledge that Rishi Sunak...
Relentless, he said he was going to...
Well, he said he was going to be relentless, and then he upgraded it to say that he would eradicate it. And it, you know, it does recall that pledge that Sunak fell short on to stop the boats that could yet do for Burnham as well.
I mean, it's also the case that we talked about homes of multiple occupation. The other thing that's being used are disused barracks and all the rest of it. And they, again, are not necessarily in, you know, the roughest areas of the country.
But this is what I mentioned, the one in Piddington.
In Crowborough in Sussex, where there are people, I mean, that no one would say that that is one of the most deprived areas of the country. And similarly, using this barracks in Piddington, in the Cotswolds.
It was near Bicester in Oxfordshire. The chairman of its parish council said more than 1,200 people are set to be housed on the site near a village home to 350 people, and that's the point they're making. Although Anna Turley, Home Office Minister, you know, has defended it, saying, well, it's not like they're going to be living in the village, kind of thing.
Although, as I understand it, people in barracks or accommodation, I mean, they're not in prison. I mean, they are allowed to come out.
And they're not allowed to work, which means that they are, you know, by dint of that, having to hang around each day.
Yeah. The Guardian, prisons. Adam, Category C jails could be upgraded to ease the crisis. The floundering around to try to solve the capacity of our jails.
Yeah, indeed. And you know, it's not as if Category C prisons aren't full anyway. So I mean, the subtext of this is if more serious offenders are being kept in and going to be put in Category C prisons, it's probably good news if you're in a Category C prison that you might be released. And they're also talking again about using women's prisons, but again, that implies that women now in prison are going to be released. I mean, it is not creating extra places in the prison system. It may be that they shunt around who stays behind bars.
Also glad, in my view, to see the government say it's going to also look at the proposal to deal with these very controversial imprisonment for public protection, so-called IPP orders, by which people have been imprisoned previously with an indefinite sentence, which goes against the grain of natural justice. And I think finally the government might grapple with those in order to free up some capacity. Longer term, the government is saying it's going to build new prisons, 14,000 spaces will be created, but of course, that will take some years to achieve.
But I was talking today to the Police and Crime Commissioner for Norfolk, who's a reform supporter, and he was saying he didn't think necessarily that IPPs were so bad because he felt that what should be done is each prisoner should be reviewed as to whether they still pose a threat to the public, which was the idea of the original IPPs, and if they do, they should stay behind bars. And so what he wanted was basically an extension of the IPP system to everybody being considered for release.
Let's go to the Times, Lucy, shall we? Which is the idea of restricting 0 hours contracts could impose, the paper quoting, eye-watering costs of up to £3 billion a year on business. This is a government admission, comes amid a flurry of Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer's policies, which many people have said have damaged business.
Well, this is one of the areas of the Employment Rights Act that was Angela Rayner's brainchild coming into government in 2024, biggest package of workers' rights in about 40 years. And this is one area which today the government has published an impact assessment of forcing firms to reform the use of 0 hour contracts, which could cost the economy £3 billion. And as you say, Anna, there's already been a lot of criticism that the increase in employer national insurance, other changes, including increases to the minimum wage, have already imposed extra costs on businesses, and particularly in some sectors like hospitality and retail, where a lot of firms are complaining of their struggles, that this new series of regulations that the government is looking at potentially rolling out, could cause them even further problems.
Adam?
I'm not sure, although she's gone back to the job she had previously, I don't think she's any longer responsible for employment law and things like that, which might give room for a climb down. Of course, the measures that Angela Rayner introduced are very popular with the trade unions. So this is another awkward one for the Burnham government, although it has to be said, their response so far whenever people say, well, you know, there's a cost to your policies, has been suck it up. So whether they'll carry on like that, we shall have to wait and see.
Let's take a look at the front of the Express, shall we? It's a knowing your audience sort of story, which is actually interesting, which is taking the stairs instead of the lift could slash your risk of an early death by nearly a quarter. It's been linked to lower risk of cardiovascular events like heart attacks or strokes, but with quite big figures attached to it.
Well, that's certainly correct. I mean, the other level of jeopardy I find in taking the 5 flights up to the press gallery in Parliament is that the heavy breathing that results if I'm on the phone to someone might give a slightly wrong impression. You mentioned the figures, Anna. Taking the stairs instead of the lift has been linked to a lower risk of cardiovascular events like heart attacks or strokes. There were 39% fewer deaths from heart problems and 24% from any cause for those in the study who climb stairs regularly.
Well, it doesn't cut the risk of early death if you fall down the stairs. And, well, no, I'm quite serious. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but, you know, elderly people, end of life is very often preceded by a fall. And I don't know whether they've, you know, compared this talk about cardiovascular to people who fall.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Experts at the University of East Anglia and Norfolk and Norwich University Hospital analysed 5 studies involving more than 450,000 people. I'm scrolling down, if I can get to, sorry, Lucy, the rest of it, just to see what the age range was of people. One study included in the review suggests climbing just 6 flights of stairs, which is the equivalent of 60 steps, could be beneficial. I think this is sort of small progress towards a greater gain, but, you know, no breakdown of age. Let's just go back to The Guardian, shall we, which is a story we have been covering as well. We're going to take a break first. We can do that afterwards. We'll talk about the drought, about a Cobra meeting, about disposable barbecues. Back in a moment.
I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
What country are you
from? The UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. There's a lot of firing going on.
Can you explain to me why? We're journalists, sir.
Let's go. Watch, wait, right. We're going to get in. Right. Get in. Get in.
We just want to ask you a few questions about your involvement with ISIS. Next step for them quite often is getting on a boat and sailing illegally over into Europe.
Es un solo procesamiento, una sola sacada.
Whoa. Oh my goodness. Whoa. Oh my goodness. If you weren't affected, you'd be a bit of a strange person.
Turn off the camera. Turn around and go away.
Okay, but
listen, I told you 3 times.
They saw 2 guys, 2 bad people.
There's an absolutely packed dinghy.
But that is what it's like. Sometimes you have to put in an awful lot of hard work. It's worth doing. I suppose it is what we do.
Does your past behaviour make you unfit to serve? Did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions.
David Cameron says that you should vote through funding for Ukraine. What do you say to that?
I really don't care what David Cameron has to say.
When you said you were from Sky News, I just got very excited.
Mr. Patel, did you endanger public safety when you said the killer was in custody? I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C.
I will always remember the atmosphere at the Shanghai protests. It was an electric mix of excitement, fear, and defiance, and a sense that history was being made.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that
flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Well, yet another heatwave is due to peak tomorrow, with temperatures climbing as high as 38 degrees. Yet while some are enjoying the weather, the Prime Minister convened an emergency Cobra meeting for the first time to discuss the fallout. Nearly 3/4 of England and the whole of Wales is now deemed in drought, and there have been more than 1,000 wildfires this year alone. It is the front page lead for The Guardian. PM vows to tackle climate as nurses warn of the toll on them of heat. But the first Cobra meeting, inviting other party leaders as well, has to be said. The Welsh First Minister, for example, attended. Is it quite late in the day to do this, do you think?
Well, it is interesting that the call has been going up for days now, suggesting that Burnham should call an emergency meeting about the severe climatic conditions we're experiencing. Interesting, he's come out urging businesses to take up the voluntary guidelines to suspend the sale of disposable barbecues, single-use grills, which have been responsible for some wildfires. There's also concerns about people smoking in the countryside and cigarette butts flicked being the cause of other fires. At the previous Cobra that was held under Keir Starmer, sorted out specialist firefighters being placed around the country to preemptively in anticipation of some of the issues we've been seeing. But clearly, we're in our 5th heatwave this year, and people just need to use their eyes. It's extraordinary how parched parkland is. Fields once you get out of cities into Greenbelt. It's quite an extraordinary state of affairs.
Yeah, I mean, farmers we've talked about a lot. Now it's the Royal College of Nursing saying that nurses are collapsing at work. They've reported seizures, dripping with sweat from head to toe. It's interminable conditions for people who don't work in aircon, not even, some ventilation, they've said, on some wards. But Adam, just offering, I've been the first to say there's been not enough messaging from government to help us, to guide us through this. But just coming out to talk about disposable barbecues, the last reservoir was built in, 1992?
Yeah. I mean, it has to be said, I don't think much has come out of this Cobra meeting, which is fine. I mean, maybe, the Prime Minister informing himself of what the various authorities are doing about the situation. We don't necessarily have to have dramatic announcements coming out, although, frankly, talking about barbecues, which have been talked about, seems a bit weak. I just was interested in this story in the front of the Financial Times, though, saying that farmers in Europe, because of the heat wave, are now working by night, including a farm in Berkshire, where they're harvesting rapeseed starting at 2 a.m, partly because there's more moisture in the air.
Wow, fascinating stuff. Adam, Lucy, stay there. Lots more still to come in the next part of our programme, including the spectacular pictures from today. Millions of people across Europe witnessing today's solar eclipse. Well, Iceland, the first to witness the rare spectacle, a total solar eclipse. Some stunning images from there. Well, people watching in Norway witnessed a partial solar eclipse. These images from the Norwegian city of Stavanger. And this the moment the eclipse began in Mallorca, with crowds who had gathered on beaches there being treated to a total eclipse. Can you see it in the distance? And the moment the most significant eclipse in decades came to an end. Full coverage coming up in the next part of The Wrap. Back in a moment.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party.
I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Tonight on The Wrap, the sun, the moon and millions of people watching around the world. Europe is plunged into darkness by a once-in-a-generation event. Here in the UK, it's first near-total solar eclipse in 25 years.
Can't quite believe what you see sometimes. It's the freak of nature, just unbelievable, absolutely amazing.
It was so good. Like, it was amazing to see. It's probably once in a lifetime kind of opportunity.
Also on the programme tonight, the Prime Minister chairs his first Cobra meeting on the summer heat waves and urges shops to stop selling disposable barbecues. And one of the best-known faces in American politics, Caroline Leavitt, quits the White House, saying she can't do her job and be the best mum to her 2 young children. Well, we discuss today's biggest stories with the FT's Whitehall editor, Lucy Fisher, and the political commentator, Adam Bolton. Plus, a first look, of course, at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. Well, hello there, Adam, Lucy, welcome as well. People came from far and wide to witness a natural phenomenon that has thrilled and sometimes perturbed or even terrified humans for thousands of years, a solar eclipse. Lucy and Adam, you both watched it. I failed.
Oh, I loved it. Not only watching it with colleagues and seeing the joy and surprise on their faces, new people came up to the rooftop of the FT's headquarters in the City of London, but after leaving, still while it was going on, and driving in a cab through the streets, just watching people piled outside pubs, all facing in the same direction, some with the hard-to-track-down eclipse specs, and some using their mobile phones, other things. But it was sort of funny to see everyone facing in the same direction, looking at the sky.
Yeah, Adam only succeeded because he got his glasses from the last solar eclipse, which are a bit battered, but worked for you, did they, Adam?
Yeah, I got them here. They work very well. Both of them.
That's what I couldn't succeed at, yeah.
I've got a German pair and a pair from the American Civil Aviation Authority. Don't ask me how I got them. But they did work very well. They even worked putting it over the lens to take a picture of it. But I would make the point that, you know, we saw people there in Devon and Spain where they had a total eclipse, where you could experience that. You couldn't actually see the sort of pictures we're seeing in the papers here in London unless you had a pair of glasses. Otherwise, the sun was just too bright to look at throughout the whole thing, even when it was covered 90%.
Some corking front pages as well. We'll take a look at that shortly. But in the UK, the eclipse was near total, as Adam suggested. Dan Whitehead reports now from Cornwall.
While the sun still shone, thousands filled Fistral Beach. For families and friends, this was a magical moment. The anticipation, and then a golden shadow as 96% of the sun disappeared.
I mean, it's incredible. I have literally got goosebumps. What a feeling. It's dark, it's eerie, it's definitely got a bit cooler. A huge eruption of applause, a real feeling that everyone has experienced this magical moment together.
I can't quite believe what you see sometimes. It's the freak of nature, just unbelievable, absolutely amazing.
It was emotional.
Very emotional, because we'll never see it again. Just absolutely fantastic.
It was really cool. I loved it.
What did you notice about it?
I noticed that it got all darker, and then now there's still some shadows of it, and all the birds went a bit, like, fast. I think they got a bit scared.
I think what's special is being here with all of these, and it's something that the kids are going to remember and we're going to remember for a lifetime. I think that's what makes it really special.
For the last 5 years, we've got a group from Darts, and we meet here every Thursday to watch the sunset. We call it Prosecco Thursday. That was our drink of choice. We have changed over the years. So this week I put the WhatsApp group and I said we're changing it to Wednesday, partial eclipse of the sun.
Was it worth it?
It bloody well was.
What a moment that was. What did you think?
Really emotional when everyone started clapping, and then everyone watching through their glasses, and just to see the amount of people here was amazing.
It just felt special. It just felt like a moment. I know I'm not going to have it again now to 2009. There's a good chance I'm probably not going to be here. So to experience it with the family, with the kids and everything like that, just taking it all in.
As the sun re-emerged, the eclipse party continued. Solar cocktails and live music went into the night. It's been 27 years since the UK experienced a partial solar eclipse like this. It'll be 2081, 55 years away, before we get it again. This was a very rare celestial moment in time. Dan Whitehead, Sky News in Newquay, Cornwall.
Well, let's go a bit further afield, shall we? Because millions of people across Europe witnessed today's solar eclipse. Alistair Bunkle, lucky enough to be on the beach on the Spanish island of Mallorca at the moment of totality.
For the first time this millennium, Western Europe went dark as the moon crossed the sun and a total eclipse sent the continent into early nightfall.
Wow.
The Arctic Circle, where the sun doesn't set during the summer months, today was the first to experience totality.
I think I'm just going to put my glasses on and look, but I do believe we have first contact here in Greenland.
The build-up to that, the lighting is like nothing you've ever seen. It's a strange, grey, monochrome, eerie twilight, which isn't like regular twilights. This can only happen during eclipse conditions, when the sun is higher in the sky. It's frankly alien and very eerie.
Iceland wasn't so lucky. The weather there slightly spoilt the show. But in Spain, the skies were clear as the path of totality cut right across the country. 500,000 people are estimated to have travelled here for the eclipse alone, and it was surely worth every penny.
I saw the one in 2024 and was amazed. So I definitely had to come here, and from my research, this looks like the best spot to view it.
In Mallorca, the final place to experience totality, people watch from the rooftops, on the beach and in the sea. For a few minutes, it felt like a normal sunset at the end of a hot day alongside the Mediterranean. But as the moment neared, the temperature dropped, the light quickly disappeared, and then...
Just look at this, or look at what you can see, and have a listen to this. We have totality now, and an event that is old as the planet itself. You can also see the modernity of the lights of camera phones as everybody can now remove their glasses and look at that spectacular image and capture it for themselves on their phones.
For 90 seconds, Mallorca experienced totality, and we witnessed an event too extraordinary to properly describe. And as fast as it went, the light returned. Like a twilight sunset, the moon appeared to be on fire.
It was worth all 90 seconds of totality that we got. It really, like you said, there are words that don't describe it. But to be in the presence of it and to just hear all of these people clapping and applauding and everyone just collectively being in this space of just enjoying this incredible astronomical event.
For a brief moment, this was a natural event far more powerful than most of us can comprehend, as ancient as the planets themselves. 90 seconds when a turbulent world stopped in awe and watched as one. Alistair Bunkle, Sky News, in Palma, Mallorca.
Well, shall we look at the front pages? Our favourite, I think, has to be The Sun. If you look at it, you'll see why. The Sun, the Moon, classic.
I love it. I have to say, I will be going out tomorrow to buy a souvenir edition.
You can take one of these printouts, and it's not the same, I know, but yeah.
Not quite the same.
Not quite the same.
But it is rare now that I think newspapers can capture a moment like this with something you feel you do want to own and have. But that will remind me of watching it tonight and being quite startled by the effect.
Yes, and you pointed out that The Sun decides to go with the UK experience, which is not quite totality, whereas the I newspaper goes for the whole shebang elsewhere.
And that's an amazing picture as well, isn't it?
An amazing picture.
And what are the bits on the edge we got?
There's a prominences, we are now told, a giant bright loop of arch of gas and magnetic field which extends outwards from the surface of the sun into its hot outer atmosphere, the corona. And these are all the bits that the scientists are relishing looking after.
What are they called? Bailey's beads?
Bailey's beads. So they are in the last moments before the sun disappears behind the moon. Bits of sunlight filter through the canyons on the moon and the mountains, forming these bright points of light known as Bailey's beads. We've got footage of one of them, actually. Let me see if we can see. You might have to lose the strap, I think, to see that. If you keep going with this one, you see little bits at the bottom. But, yeah, I mean, it's all amazing stuff, isn't it? Let's be honest. So that's why I'm just gutted I didn't get the glasses and couldn't look at the sun. But there'll be lots of people like me who'll be chasing it around the world next year.
Well, that's a great thing, you know, although it won't be...
Look at the little light at the bottom there, yeah.
Beautiful. It won't be 2050 until we have another partial eclipse in the UK that's as extreme as this. 96% of the solar disk covered in Cornwall, Land's End. But you can travel to Morocco next year, I think, parts of Egypt, Jeddah, all destinations where you can see it. So if you've missed your chance, Anna,
I did.
Book a flight.
I did. What I did see was the birds flying frantically, which many people also describe. But anyway.
Yeah, and what it is, of course, is worth saying because we're used to seeing crescents in the sky. It's a crescent sun. That's what's so rare about it. I mean, in a sense, that makes it more fun than a total eclipse. You know, we've seen circles before, but that crescent of the sun is quite exciting.
And the strange thing, of course, it coincides with the Perseid meteor showers and the benefit of finishing work so late in the night, I might have a chance of seeing a shooting star.
I don't recommend looking for those. I once was assured that I was in the best place to see Perseid stars.
Yeah, you got a crick in your neck and saw nothing.
I've been in the south of France often in August watching them, and you can see 12 in a 5-minute period of shooting stars in a very clear sky.
I was in the south of France. I saw about 3 in about 12 hours. It was
OK, well, there we are. Give it a go tonight, Adam. We'll compare notes next time. Now, let's move on to Donald Trump, shall we, who has announced that one of Washington's most recognisable and combative figures is leaving her role. We're talking about the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, who is leaving at the end of the month to spend more time with her family. She had her second child, if you remember, at the beginning of May. Well, she said in a statement, "The truth is, since returning to the White House after the birth of my daughter, I have felt in my heart that I cannot be the best mum my 2 young children deserve, while devoting the constant time, energy and attention required of the White House press secretary. And that is why I have ultimately made the bittersweet decision to depart the White House and embark on a new chapter in my life. My fight is entering a new phase, but it is far from over." So, should we watch her in action? Here she is.
You're pretending like you're a journalist, but you're a left-wing activist. And the question that you just raised and your answer proves your bias. You should be reporting on the facts. You should be reporting on the cases. Do you have the numbers of how many American citizens were killed at the hands of illegal aliens who ICE is trying to remove from this country? I bet you don't. I bet you didn't even read up on those stories.
They don't get charged on foreign companies. They get charged on the importers.
And ultimately, when we have fair and balanced trade, which the American people have not seen in decades, as I said at the beginning, revenues will stay here, wages will go up, and our country will be made wealthy again. And I think it's insulting that you are trying to test my knowledge of economics and the decisions that this president has made. I'm now regret giving a question to the Associated Press. Shame on you and shame on the mainstream media for trying to cover for these individuals who have. This is a vicious gang, Andrew. This is a vicious gang that has taken the lives of American women.
And only 28 years old, would you believe it? A woman who doesn't really believe in maternity leave, or at least not for the last 2 children, and has effectively said that actually doing this job and being a mother to 2 youngsters is impossible.
Yes, you know, she said it's a bittersweet decision deciding to leave the White House, although she will remain a senior advisor to Trump externally. And it's a loss for him too. You know, those clips there, I think, really showed her confidence, how much she was almost enjoying going into battle with the media. And a one-time Fox News intern, she became a presidential speechwriter for Trump, then press secretary for his second term. And I think he will struggle potentially to find someone he can trust as much, who aligns with the MAGA pugilistic brand and ethos of taking the fight to the press, or the mainstream media, as we heard her call them. And of course, you know, it comes at a very critical time for Trump, where things are difficult over Iran, difficult with Ukraine, and of course, he's heading towards these midterm elections in November. That could also prove, you know, a very tough moment for his presidency.
Yes, and Gaza on the foreign stage as well, has to be said. And, you know, domestically, I suppose we, like Americans, are looking at the cost of living with, you know, inflation and fuel prices.
Yeah, although the Leavitt and Trump way is to deny reality and say everything's cheaper. She has been a significant figure because she's shaken up the White House press corps. She's the person who's been bringing in influencers and people and not allowing the top mainstream media organisations to necessarily have access as of right. Some of them, Associated Press, for example, have protested quite strongly about that. So, you know, and it's interesting that when Tim Allen was briefly the press secretary for Keir Starmer, he was trying to do similar sort of things, which is to reflect the new media, downgrading to a certain extent the old media in favour of influencers and all that. But, you know, as you say, she's only 28, she's 29, I think, later this month. Yeah. Her husband, however, is in his 60s. And she's had these 2 children pretty rapidly. And as you say, she only took a few days off each time. But so important was she for Donald Trump that when she had, I think, a week off maternity leave after the birth of her second child this year, the man called in to deputise for her was the Vice President.
That's right, yeah.
J.D. Vance. So I don't know whether he'll be doing that full time.
Well, yeah, what a gig, yeah, hilarious. Yeah, we'll see who replaces Caroline Leavitt. Now, yet another heat wave is due to peak tomorrow, with temperatures climbing as high as 38 degrees. It is the 5th of the summer for some parts of England and prompted the Prime Minister to convene a meeting of the government's Emergency Cobra Committee. Phoebe Southworth has more.
The UK is in the grip of another heat wave, and wildfires are raging. This is the New Forest, protected land where habitats of rare species are now under threat. Temperatures are expected to near 40 degrees Celsius this week, and while many are basking in the heat and using water to cool down, others have no water at all.
Almost 3/4 of England and the whole of Wales are in drought, and some parts of England haven't had running water for days because of burst pipes. But it's not just about showering, it's also local businesses like these that are being drained of their income.
Michelle needs a full tank of water for her portable dog grooming business in Essex. She's lost hundreds of pounds.
I prepare them on the table here.
Yeah.
Which lowers or goes higher for different dogs.
Yeah, so that's step one.
And then I put them in the bath.
Yeah.
Where the water comes from the back of there, which I fill up normally, into the tank, wash them in here, and dry them in here, blast them in here. And the problem is where it's so hot at the moment, people want their dogs done. You know, they want their dogs done now, but dogs are suffering, and that breaks my heart.
This one's got to be cancelled.
Karen only found out she couldn't run her hair salon when she arrived to start work.
Came in this morning, I've had no update, no information that the water was going to be turned off, and we ceased trading. I've loss of earnings, still got my rent, my rates to pay, still got staff to pay. It's not good enough. Don't like to let clients down and customers. They could be going out somewhere special, weddings, holidays. It's just there's a knock-on effect all round, really.
In a bit of shade here, anyway.
Not much to be had,
a little bit, yeah.
The heat is so extreme, Prime Minister Andy Burnham chaired an emergency Cobra meeting.
The big risk in terms of risk to the wider regions across the country is the risk of wildfires, and what we are seeing is multiple serious incidents across the country. Fire services, by and large, are supporting each other through mutual aid to deal with those incidents, but we are keeping a very close watching brief on them. But there is advice to the public here not to use disposable barbecues.
This is set to be the UK's warmest summer ever recorded, and with future heat waves on the horizon, many are asking, how can we be better prepared next time? Phoebe Southworth, Sky News.
So, Adam, finally, a Cobra meeting. The messaging coming out of it is drop the disposable barbecues. Is that enough from government?
Well, I mean, obviously, as we've seen, the emergency services are on top of it. Everyone's aware of what the problems are. We've had today, I think it's South East Water, announcing that in some parts, Hampshire, for example, it's going to go one stage further, or take powers to go one stage further than hosepipe bans to actually be in a position to instruct people to save water more. So everyone knows it's a crisis. I mean, I think what Andy Burnham's perhaps learning is that, you know, you can call a Cobra meeting, but you can't necessarily make the problems go away.
Yeah, the Prime Minister urged all retailers, big and small, to pull the barbecues from their shelves as he warned extreme heat conditions could be with us for some weeks yet. Apologies, Scotland. We're going to keep chatting about this, aren't we? Big issues, though.
And Northern Ireland, they've had rain as well.
Have they? Well, I know, and, you know, obviously Ireland tried to watch the eclipse, and anyway, less said. Anyway, Sophie, sorry, Lucy, you know, a lot of really big issues with regard to the weather.
Well, that's right. And tomorrow, another amber health warning as temperatures are set to reach 36 degrees or even higher in parts of England. People warned not to travel by train because there's likely to be disruptions to the network. For me, one of the big political impacts of this discussion of the extraordinary weather and climate we've seen this summer is what it means for Burnham and the political test ahead on North Sea drilling, We've just had one major consultation close this week, another closes next week, on whether to extend licensing to drill for fossil fuels into existing North Sea fields, Rosebank and Jackdaw. And I think it's interesting to see there are MPs coming out on both sides, some saying, you know, we need to be careful. This weather shows that climate change and, you know, carbon emissions need to be gripped. And is that the right signal to be sending politically? Is it the right thing to do morally to go ahead with that?
Do we know when we're going to get that decision? Because clearly they were approved, weren't they? And then they were challenged by environmental campaigners. So, I mean, is there any time frame on that?
I've been told by officials September.
Right.
Could be as early September we could hear a result on that.
I think there is a sort of period of jeopardy coming up for the new Prime Minister, because as we saw on the case of the killers or the people involved in the killing of PC Harper, he sort of said, you know, he didn't quite say, I'm going to stop, I'm going to sort it, but he said, no, I'm going to look at it, see what I can do. So far, he hasn't managed to deliver on keeping them in prison. Similarly, he's taken this thing saying, well, I'm going to look at North Sea drilling, and if he then decides to stick with the status quo, people will begin to think, you know, frankly, that he's all mouth and no trousers.
OK, we'll see what comes out of that Cobra meeting, certainly. And take a look at the papers. You've already seen it. There's the sun. We love it. It's the sun, the moon. It's on the telly. We'll see you in a minute.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city, where there's a column of Russian armoury.
I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul.
Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Big Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us?
Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office.
Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
Now, the serial sex offender and double murderer Simon Levy was told by the families of his victims that he would rot in hell as he learned today that he will never be released from prison. The Met Police have faced criticism for their handling of the case after several opportunities were missed to stop the killer. Well, the Met Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, says it points to wider failings in the justice system.
So this is about a whole system failing. The most concerning aspect for me is the fact that he had been caught, he had been charged with offences. He was repeatedly by the police put before the courts, seeking remanding in custody. The police were saying this guy's too dangerous to be on the streets, and between CPS and the courts, they kept bailing him. So it's not acceptable for a struggling criminal justice system to put increasing amount of risks on the street and then say to the police, we're going to give you a bigger and bigger list of dangerous people to monitor, and then just to focus all the criticism on us if we don't do it as well as we could. And I'm not sort of trying to absolve ourselves of our responsibility, but dangerous people need remanding in custody, and we're seeing far too many cases, day in and day out, knife carriers, sex offenders who are being bailed when a few years ago they've been remanded in custody, and we can't carry all of that load in communities. We will do everything we can do to do better, but the justice system needs to carry more of the load than it is at the moment, rather than passing it back onto the streets.
Well, let's talk more then, because the failings over this case are considerable and are being investigated, are they not?
Well, that's right, and those failings span potentially the Met itself, prosecutors, the courts, so a spate of failings here. Agonising for the family and friends of the victims killed last year that he had been freed after so many crimes in order to commit such heinous acts again. And in particular, last year, 2 weeks before he killed one of his victims, he had been due in a London Crown Court, had failed to turn up, claiming mental health problems, and there had been no warrant for his arrest issued. So many chances to catch him that weren't fulfilled. But of course now, after this 5-week trial, a rare whole life order has been handed down, and he won't be able to inflict this damage on anyone in society again.
And Adam, you were suggesting that this raises concerns that, once again, the authorities, namely the police, I suppose, in this instance, the courts to magistrates suggesting they weren't given the information by prosecutors, that this shows that still offences against women, sex offences against women, are not taken seriously enough.
Yeah, I mean, that is the argument by people who follow this case very closely, and I'm afraid for all that Smart Rowley's saying there, I think the general view is in this case, the people who were slowest and least attentive to repeated sex offences by this man were the police rather than the prosecuting authorities or the courts. And certainly, I was saying earlier that Sonia Soda, who often is on the rap, she wrote a long piece in the Times about the column in the Times about this, suggesting that actually the lessons haven't been learned from the dreadful Sarah Everard case, and that there was, in her view, institutional misogyny embedded in the police as far as taking seriously crimes against women.
Well, Levy's prolific sexual offending spanned the period between 2018 and 2025, and yet he was still able to go and murder 2 women and leave another for dead. You know, I mean, all of it just beggars belief. Already we know that there's been action taken against a Met Police constable and a misconduct notice on a detective sergeant. You know, we know also Scotland Yard has issued pleas for more survivors of sex attacks by Levy to come forward to police. Potential survivors say that they have been working and have exhausted numerous lines of inquiry, including working with coroners to try to identify whether Levy is responsible for any similar unsolved incidents, including deaths. They added they're yet to find anything they believe is linked to Levy. Well, some of it's in plain sight, and yet he was still getting bail. Extraordinary. Yeah.
Absolutely extraordinary. And one wonders whether, on the basis that some of his victims who are known about were marginalised women who had, in the past, performed sex acts for money or for drugs, the question of whether there are other similar vulnerable women who perhaps work in the grey economy who don't wish to come forward and be identified. But he was clearly a very sophisticated, manipulative sex offender. However, the frequency, prolific nature of his attacks and the fact he was free to do them again is very concerning. And of course, what Mark Rowley has said in his warning today, that there are numerous other sex offenders, knife-wielding sex offenders, he said, who are not being held in remand and who are being free to roam the streets. It's a very worrying issue, and one that could end up being a major first test for Andy Burnham as he's trying to grapple with this contentious prisoner early release scheme, which aims to free up capacity to ensure that there isn't a shortage of places to keep the most serious criminals on remand.
Yeah, I've got to say, on the basis of that clip, though, basically deflecting blame to other areas of the criminal justice system, I think that was a very disappointing response from Mark Rowley.
But it might be true, though. I mean, it might not be that people are let out
as I
on
say, I
remand,
think the
but
facts of the case show that the police, you know, fairly consistently overlooked actually, you know, what this man was doing, and to just say, well, it's other people, I think is a mistake. Maybe elsewhere in his interview he took some blame onto the police, but we have to remember he was the man who came in effectively to clean up the police after the Everard case, and on that basis he sounded a bit tone deaf, frankly.
OK, should we look at the front pages now? Let us start with The Sun. It gives a starring role to the moon in a special edition covering today's solar eclipse. Well, the Eye describes the event as once in a generation. The Metro attempts a pun his blot all the fuss was about. The Telegraph also features the eclipse, but its main story concerns Andy Burnham's plans to rehouse asylum seekers and the possible implications for taxpayers. The Guardian says nurses are among the people suffering the most amid the ongoing heat crisis as the Prime Minister looks to grasp the problem. The Daily Mail speaks to campaigners blaming Labour's environmental policies for recent wildfires. The Times has seen government analysis which appears to admit that its reforms to zero-hours contracts will have a negative impact on businesses. The Mirror looks ahead to tomorrow's Clacton by-election. So too does the Daily Star. The Express carries a study suggesting using stairs instead of lifts reduces the risk of dying early. And the FT leading with the suspension of Ukrainian drone strikes on oil tankers in a key Russian port following an intervention from the US Vice President J.D. Vance. So let's take a look at some of those front pages then, shall we, including Andy Burnham and the idea that middle-class areas need to do more to take their fair share of asylum seekers and migrants, and raising the prospect that would cost more money, Adam.
Yeah, it would cost more money because rents are more expensive in those areas, and we're talking about homes of multiple occupation, and he's saying that he will sign off spending more money if that means that these people are spread around. I mean, the point, of course, is that they were in hotels, which weren't necessarily in the poorest areas of the country. There was a public outcry about that. Labour committed to get them out, and now they're putting them in rented accommodation. But I can't quite see what the politics of this is from Andy Burnham, you know, other than, you know, sticking it to better off areas. What's he trying to achieve? I can't necessarily see the votes in him, and I also don't think it's necessarily the case that those areas have avoided having asylum seekers. I mean, I think of Crowborough, for example, where a barracks has been used. I do like the cartoon by Matt, though, which has a cartoon,
little, isn't it? Yeah.
Cartoon of a neat little village with a proud sign up saying, "Winner, village with the prettiest asylum detention centre."
Yeah, this is all about the village of Piddington, isn't it, near Bicester in Oxfordshire, where there is an idea to use a military barrack, and everybody's saying, you know, it would fit more than 1,200 migrants in. It's a village of, you know, a quarter of that, and that's caused an upset. Let's put it that way. So, what is this about fairness? Do you think, or if you move people out of hotels, which were costly, people have got to go somewhere?
Well, I think it chimes in a way with Burnham's broader argument about trying to level up the country, to make it fairer across postcodes. The subtext here, I think, is speaking to that idea that, you know, areas like London and the southeast have sort of had it too good. He's talking about across the land, or Downing Street sources to the Telegraph, and saying that he thinks that this is a point of principle. This is a matter of fairness, that wealthier areas shouldn't be exempted from, you know,
but
helping.
Hotels were used in wealthier areas, weren't they?
Well,
So
that's right. So that, as Adam says, this is about trying to move people out of hotels because voters didn't like to see that. You know, treats they saved up for holidays, you know, domestic holidays to stay in nice hotels, were being handed out for free, as people saw. So there was an uproar about the cost of that too. 2.7 billion spent on hotel accommodation for asylum seekers in 24 to 25. So the move was to these homes of multiple occupancy and to barracks. But the issue is that the private contractors who sought out the homes for private rent for asylum seekers have had to adhere to quite low or modest rent caps, and therefore Burnham appears to be admitting his team to the Telegraph that he is prepared to spend more in order to reach the higher prices that you know, more middle class areas will command.
Adam, let's just squeeze in the Times. It's all about, you know, inheriting policies, but also inheriting problems, isn't it? And this is accusations that the 0 hours changes that were brought in are going to be hugely costly for business in a reckoning that's been done.
Yeah, this is a government report, so it's clearly awkward, saying that it's going to cost businesses gross some £3 billion. These are, of course, the 0 hours reforms that were brought in by Angela Rayner. So, you know, we have the odd situation at the moment where the Labour government has imposed costs on businesses, we're seeing, and then trying to give it back partially with breaks for the hospitality centre and others. So it's it's an uncomfortable situation for the government to find itself in.
Adam, Lucy, plenty more after the break. Back in a moment.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Well, welcome back. We are taking a look through the newspapers, and let's go to yours, Lucy, shall we, which is the complex world of Ukraine. We talked about, this is one of the issues that Caroline Levitt, the departing White House press secretary, would have had to deal with. But this is a phone call by J.D. Vance impacting what Ukraine could class as a target. Tell us more.
Well, fascinating. Ukrainian officials have briefed that J.D. Vance, the US Vice President, directly asked Volodymyr Zelensky to stop using drone attacks on oil tankers because the disruptions to the oil market, were damaging American businesses. And of course, Vance will be thinking very carefully about the impact on the US economy ahead of the midterms in November. In particular, it has been the impact of strikes in the Black Sea on tankers carrying crude piped oil from Kazakhstan to a specific terminal in a Russian port, which is causing the problems here. But fascinating how the US's actions and war in Iran are, having this secondary impact on Ukraine and its war with Russia too.
Yes, Andy Burnham with the, ambition of tackling the cost of living. Same for America in terms of inflation and the midterms, the importance on the electorate of their own, gas prices, Adam.
Yeah, but what it shows is Ukraine does have some cards in this war, contrary to what the President and the Vice President told Vladimir Zelensky. As you say, this is a port mainly used for exporting oil from Kazakhstan, which is not subject to sanctions. But this port, American oil companies have significant shareholdings in it, including Exxon. So, basically Vance is phoning up and saying what you're doing is hurting us. And of course, that implies perhaps that there could be a quid pro quo of Zelensky maybe getting something out of the Americans in exchange. And then I know you want to move on to this other story.
Which is then the Telegraph.
Telegraph
carry
story,
on,
which is President Putin threatening to seize British ships after their crackdown on oil. And this is President Putin saying that Britain and France are countries that have boarded the shadow fleet. He has gone on the record describing this as piracy and robbery and said that Russia might have to respond in kind. So again, it seems to me that that kind of threat suggests that the military operation, mainly drones, being conducted by Ukraine and the decision to clamp down on so-called ghost ships, Russian ships operating under other flags, is hurting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hurting our economy too, and actually elsewhere it's reported in the Eye, I don't think we've got the article to show you, but that the UK economy will barely grow next year if the Iran war continues until the end of 2026. The Eye reporting that Treasury officials have told that to the Prime Minister after internal modelling. I mean, it's all gloomy stuff, isn't it, if stuff doesn't get sorted with these conflicts that we're talking about.
Well, very gloomy indeed. This internal modelling from the Treasury suggesting that GDP could grow by as little as 0.3% next year. That will be alarming to the new Chancellor John Healey as he plans his first budget for October the 29th. And of course, next year we've got the next multi-year spending review that the government's got to contend with. Already, Burnham's come out with a policy blitz of sort of eye-catching measures to help alleviate the cost of living for households, but they come with a price attached. And already we know that the Iran war has squeezed the headroom that Rachel Reeves built in to the economy in the last budget. But things could become very difficult very quickly if the Iran war continues to rumble on. But Equally, I think Burnham and the officials he is being briefed by now in the National Security Secretariat know by this stage that trying to influence Donald Trump, who has not had a very sophisticated approach to the conflict with Iran, is very difficult. And, you know, it's difficult to see how the US backs out of the conflict itself.
But we should say small cheer, one hurrah perhaps, as this story mentions right at the end, latest growth figures for the last 3 months up until July, second quarter are good. 0.4%, much higher than people like these Treasury people predicted.
We'll take any cheer. It's good. Thank you very much, Adam. Let us move on to Anne Widdecombe, also in the newspapers. We've got pictures, though, of her private funeral, which took place at Buckfast Abbey. Nigel Farage, the Reform Party leader, did not attend because he was out campaigning, but he is expected to attend a public memorial for Anne Widdecombe later this year. And in a social media post, he said, an extraordinary woman who left a serious mark on British politics, and no one would dispute that, even if they went on the same side of the aisle as her.
No, I think that's absolutely right, and moving to see the pictures of 100 friends and some former colleagues gathering at Buckfast Abbey in Devon, where she worshipped as a Catholic. She converted during her lifetime. Also striking that police officers and sniffer dogs were in the churchyard outside, given the concerns about potential wider attacks on politicians linked to the right-wing party reform.
It was a private funeral. I don't know who attended. I do know that Ian Dale, the LBC presenter and publisher, he did attend, and in order to attend, he drove overnight from Edinburgh to Devon because he's been doing events at the Edinburgh Festival, you know, showed how much he really cared for Anne Widdecombe.
And the final story we were going to talk about was the Express, which is basically taking the stairs could reduce the chance of dying by quite considerable numbers. Read that one. I haven't got time to talk about it. Adam, Lucy, fantastic. Thank you so much. Really good to see you both. Thank you. We have sport next. The gold medals keep on coming for Great Britain at the European Athletics Championships.
I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
What country are you
from? The UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. There's a lot of firing going on.
Can you explain to me why? We're journalists, sir.
Let's go. Watch, wait. Right, we're going to get in. Right, get in. Get in.
We just want to ask you a few questions about your involvement with ISIS. Next step for them quite often is getting on a boat and sailing illegally over into Europe.
Es un solo procesamiento, una sola sacada.
Whoa. Oh my goodness. Whoa. Oh my goodness. If you weren't affected, you'd be a bit of a strange person.
Turn off the camera. Turn around and go away. Thank you very much.
Okay, but
listen, I told you 3 times.
They saw 2 guys, 2 bad people.
There's an absolutely packed dinghy.
that is what it's like. Sometimes you have to put in an awful lot of hard work. It's worth doing. I suppose it is what we do.
Does your past behaviour make you unfit to serve? Did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions.
David Cameron says that you should vote through funding for Ukraine. What do you say to that?
I really don't care what David Cameron has to say.
When you said you were from Sky News, I just got very excited.
Mr. Patel, did you endanger public safety when you said the killer was in custody? I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C.
To the left, to the left.
I will always remember the atmosphere at the Shanghai protests. It was an electric mix of excitement, fear and defiance, and a sense that history was being made.
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul. Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Time for the sport. Here is Mike.
Juan de Ramos, knowing he may not have Dimitar Berbatov signed up after this season.
The reality is this, that Berbatov is with us at the moment and we're going to enjoy having him with us. If he goes, then we'll have to look for a replacement for him.
Coming from a small country, I knew that it was my moment to grab it. Otherwise, maybe another one was not going to come my way.
Fantastic talent. I think in the club there was already rumors that Berbak maybe it's coming.
We know because Ferguson always give us the tips and asking also, guys, I'm going to take this player. What do you think? He always liked to have your opinion.
It was not under the radar or anything like that. It was played out in the headlines where everybody knew what was happening. It was always difficult doing business with Spurs, as we know.
In my mind, it was straightforward. A team wants you, they come, they give the money that the other team wants for you, you sign the contract, there we go. Fortunately, that was not the case with me.
Well, we've made a bid for one player, and obviously that would be enhances a great deal.
Sir Alex Ferguson arrived in South Africa as part of Manchester United's pre-season, but events at home have become more pressing. Tottenham have reported them to the Premier League for tapping up Dimitar Berbatov, saying that the player has made it clear he wants to join Manchester United and will now be a negative influence on the squad.
Tottenham have written to the Premier League to ask them to investigate our actions. Spurs are choosing to cover it in the press as well, that's their prerogative, but we'll deal with it privately, we'll deal with any request for information from the Premier League and let's see what happens. But I think it'd be totally inappropriate to make any public comment on that matter.
It's a very competitive sport, football. And the transfer business is very competitive, so you have to get on there, you have to have thick skin and just get on with it. I didn't feel that we'd done anything that was untoward, really, or not best practice. I would have kept Daniel informed exactly where we were at, what was happening, and what our thinking was. I have notes of all my conversations and calls with him, so I could, that would be a record there.
I think when you're dealing with Daniel Levy and Tottenham, he did what was best for Tottenham. We won't let people walk all over him just because Manchester United came in and said, right, we want Dimitar Berbatov. It was always going to be difficult.
I think Daniel Levy at that time was proving to be a hard negotiator, and I think at times quite frustrating for someone like Sir Alex to deal with.
Did you speak to Daniel Levy? I make it clear that now is the next step in my development. I need to go to make it happen for me. So he knew, we spoke, sometimes it was more calm, sometimes it was more voices raised. When you are new in a negotiation like this, like I was thinking, what is going on here? I mean, where am I? Do I need now to be more vocal and strong in my position? Do I need to relax and let my agent do the talking and stuff like this? It was fascinating.
Well, that was the wrap. Thank you so much for watching. All the top stories coming up right here on Sky News. I will see you tomorrow by Election News then.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
being a Sky News journalist?
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today.
Congratulations, this is a huge moment.
But what happens now?
Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul. Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides and it's moving this way.